What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Algorithm. Uh, we're here for episode 3 today, and it's David here, joined with JC. Today we're going to be breaking down a shit ton of fun, different, brand campaigns, creative campaigns, collabs, brand refreshes, all the things going on in the world of branding, creativity, and business. So, I think that really what's been fun about this entire process has been keeping an eye out for some of these different things going on in the industry. I mean, always we catch what's going on in our feeds and we share it with one another, but there have been some really interesting topics that have been coming down our feed this week, and I'll do a quick little rundown here. We'll start really with Ben Stiller's new soda brand, and like really how like humor and nostalgia can fuel a launch of that sort. And then we'll dive into some of the AI ad wars. There's like 3 different competitors, 2 that most people know, and 1 that's kind of like an upstart that's trying to punch up in the category, mostly on the hardware side. And then we'll jump over to Reebok and how they're doing a lot of these really cool collabs and leaning into the retro side of their brand and the nostalgia factor. And then we'll wrap it up with Pizza Hut as they soft launch their new brand refresh. But
again,
yeah, yeah, it's a little bit much at this point. But yeah, we have the rundown here for you guys. JC, I don't know if you have a couple things you want to say before we dive into it.
Just excited to get started. I think we're seeing a real trend in the market, which is that nostalgic take on these brands and on like the kind of the refreshes that these brands are having. So excited to dive in. I think Ben Stiller kind of hit it on the nail, the head on the nail there, the nail on the head there with his launch. So yeah, excited to dive in, man.
For sure. Yeah, and that's where we're going to kick it off. And you can tell here that, Stillers is what it's called. They kind of did a little bit of a cheeky sort of approach to their branding. It's really a nod to his childhood because he actually used to go to different comedy shows and events at night, and he'd be by the bar, and he obviously can't order a drink as a kid, so he would order like Shirley Temples with root beer and lemon lime and different sodas and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a nod to his childhood and the way that he grew up. And what's cool is he kind of uses a spoof to introduce the brand, right? Like he's kind of making fun of himself. He's not doing the traditional celebrity brand that they take themselves too seriously, and they're trying to make it seem like they're innovating in a way that's never been done before. So yeah, it's a lot of parody and humor in this, and they even launched a series of videos. I think we could play one of them here so that people can kind of get a gist who haven't seen this. But so that's the way that they kind of announced it, and I think that they did a really.
I think Valerio is saying they couldn't hear it.
Oh, okay. So they didn't play the audio.
Yeah, I didn't play the audio.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's really Ben doing a voiceover, and then you have Justin Theroux in the background, kind of sabotaging and jumping in and having his little 2 cents as he's talking about it. He's like, "But a lot of bubbles," and a lot of things that he interjects to really like kind of cut off and like I said, spoof the actual spot. And I think that it's a refreshing take, honestly. It's still the differentiator in the sense of it's a better for you brand, soda brand. It doesn't have all the sugar and all the calories that traditional soda brands have. So there is that angle to it, but really from a branding standpoint, I think they did a good job of you really like separating themselves and not taking the traditional celebrity run brand into the market, right? And also a thing to call out here is they didn't lean into the new trend, which is like the Ollipops of the world
Mm-hmm.
and the Poppies of the world, with like the functional beverage of saying like, oh, prebiotic or probiotic. So they really are not trying to be super into like that side of it either. It's like not enough, not really too much fluff, if
Yeah.
you can see that. And I think that that's really cool, because it's he's tapping into the nostalgia of his childhood. B, he's making fun of himself and the brand and the way that he's presenting it. And C, he's not leaning into the trend of just taking yourself as like this. Well, you have to follow me because I'm innovating in a way that has never been done before. But yeah, I don't know if you have
Yeah.
any 2 cents here.
Yeah, there's some layers here. I'm gonna be very upfront. I love Ben Stiller. He's one of my favorites in Hollywood. Like, I love everything that he's put out. He's also part of our childhood, so I think like there will be a little bit of bias there. But this just feels so on brand. Like, even the name, the way that it rolls off the tongue. His first commercial just feels him. It feels like what it should, and I think sometimes that's really hard for established. Established actors or famous individuals. It's really hard when you're coming out with a product like this, because you could feel inauthentic and it could feel fake and it could feel pushed, whereas this is actually one of the ones, and again, not because it's him, but it just feels so on brand, so authentic. It feels like he's been drinking this all his life, and it's just like, oh guys, by the way, like, this is a brand that I've been drinking all my life here. I want you guys to drink it. Like, it really feels organic and authentic. And I think at the end of the day, that's what, especially in today's world, like, as a brand, that's what you want to get across. He doesn't take himself too seriously, which he never has. He's always been a jokester. And he just gets it. He just gets it. And I think this is super well done. And I agree with you. I think, like, shying away a little bit from the movement right now to have to be a functional food item in this category. I think just like coming at it as like, we're just better for you. It's just like some less sugar, real ingredients. We're just a better for you cola. I think is a beautiful rollout. And I also think that their choice of not going like a traditional like cola, and going a Shirley Temple root beer and lemon lime, which he says is the flavors that he specifically drank in his childhood. And I went on the website today, and his dad's there, his mom's there. We all know, his father, King of Queens, and I think like just that authentic touch of like, this was my family. This is what we drank growing up, and like these are the type of things we drank growing up. Really cool. And yeah, like I said, I agree with you. Like, not hitting that functional foods demographic over the head, and kind of going at it in a very authentic way. I think like I think it's just great. And then kind of the last thing on this is I know on the branding side we always like to talk branding, but kind of like dollars and cents wise, I did a little bit of a deep dive, and really interesting. So they are not they're direct to consumer, but they're going strictly Amazon and brick and mortar. And I kind of dove in a little bit more into that, and I think that's a brilliant play on their end. I think just by the name alone, he's going to be able to get some space in store shelves. So I think like obviously he's probably hooked up with brokers or somebody that's on the in, and anybody, there's any buyer. If I'm at Walmart, if I'm anywhere, Ben Stiller comes to me with this type of product, like obviously you're going to want to put it on store shelves. It's going to move. But the kind of like e-commerce play here, or lack thereof, is because at the end of the day, like, beverages like this, liquids, are very expensive to ship. And I think like you're seeing that going direct to Amazon and direct to brick and mortar. They kind of just omitted the whole Shopify or like e-com route, and they went directly to Amazon. So that was just something to point out that I saw when I went to their website, that they don't have, you can't purchase on their website. It is, like I said, direct to Amazon and brick and mortar. And I've seen this more and more just because of shipping costs. It's, not every product is made for you to have your own storefront on Shopify. Just like the margins don't make sense, the math doesn't math. And this is one of them, right? This is one of them where like to ship liquids like this is just, you would be so overpriced to be able to ship this direct to your house, direct to a website. It makes sense going Amazon and brick and mortar. So I just wanted to note that because I thought that was a interesting kind of like play on how the distribution of this was playing out.
Yeah, no, that's a big point because like we've discussed from the e-commerce standpoint, there's certain items that like I've worked with a snacks brand, right? And they basically, when they were going direct to consumer, they had to sell in bundles. Like they weren't going to sell one box of crackers because it just didn't make sense. They'd waste so much money in the cost of acquisition, the shipping, packing, all the things, the storage. Like it for products like these that their average order value is like well under $20, it becomes very difficult to be sustainable if they don't have another kind of distribution channel. So it makes total sense for him to come in and have those relationships or create those relationships, because otherwise, this would fall flat really quick.
In order to be in this category and make your own website, your own e-commerce platform work, you have to have other items, and I don't think that's the play here. So again, like that's smart on them, but you'd have to have other items to be able to cover up for the margins. Zaya dropping in with do I stop drinking LaCroix? Nah, keep on. Although I would be down to. I want to try the distillers, man.
Yeah, I think we should we should get a little care package to the office or buy some to test it out and give our honest opinions on it before we jump to any conclusions. Great. Yeah. And before we jump to the next topic, the other part that I wanted to hone in on was more on the creative and branding side. I love the art direction. You could tell it has that like 80s glamours look where the edges are soft. There's a glow to it. There's like this entire grandeur, especially if you were to hear the music that's used. It's like an 80s pop rock, like just like drums and like a lot of things going on that it screams 80s. And I think that it's good that they honed in on that, and having a personality like Ben Stiller. I'm personally not a huge fan of celebrity run brands because I feel like it lives and dies.
Agreed.
But what's good about it is that the way that this is packaged and the way that the branding is done is that if you were to remove him as the face, it might still have his last name on there. But if you put other characters and other personas that could act on that behalf, and I think you can, like it works still, which is always my biggest thing. Like there's some brands that if you extract the celebrity, it has no personality. And then that's where you didn't do something right, in my opinion, because then it's not really a brand or a product. It's kind of just like a celebrity novelty.
Mm-hmm.
So
agreed. One of the guys in the market that has done it well is he's done it well and then he's done it poorly is The Rock. Like I think his apparel line is on brand for him. Although yes, he is the face of it, but I think it's super on brand for him. And I think his Terramana, the tequila brand, is pretty on brand for him. But then he came out with like some hair care products, which you're bald. Whereas in that case, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like the face of the brand is him, and you remove him, the brand is nothing.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about that one yesterday because I think that their tagline was like Big Dwayne Energy, and it was already like playing off the BDE thing, and it was like it's like catching onto an old trend or an old meme sort of thing, like trying to capitalize on it, and it's like already weird, like you're saying, because he's selling hair products when he doesn't have hair, and B, just like being gimmicky or cheesy with that. I think that the team that did that one didn't have as a well of a thought out kind of approach.
Agreed.
Cool. So jumping into the next category, we have these AI ad wars. So like the three companies that we're talking about here is Anthropic's Claude, OpenAI's ChatGPT, and the startup called Friend that has a kind of like a device that listens and absorbs this information and kind of like is your companion of sorts. So we're going to see three different kind of approaches here. I'm curious to know if people could hear this, because if the first one didn't play, I'm hoping that this one does. But we'll play the first one so you guys can get an idea, and we'll look out for the comments to see if you can.
Yeah, no sound.
So I'll pause it there. Not sure if everyone knows sound okay, so people can't hear this for some reason. I'll probably reshare the screen on that one, but the big thing here and really what it started is like it saying like there's never been a worse time, and it kind of like this like robotic kind of voice keeps chiming in and chanting that it's like there's never been a worse time, almost like playing into the fears and like the the negativity that's been surrounding a lot of like life events, news events, AI in general. So it took that and then it flips it to say there's never been a better time, to have a medical condition, to be stuck. So it's almost like flipping it as an opportunity, because as a result of these problems, and really the way that's the key thing that they're trying to hone in on here is like Anthropic is trying, and their tagline is here, the AI for problem solvers. So it's not about, it's about, there's problems everywhere you look. It's a matter of like, do you just accept that problem, or are you looking to solve that problem? And Anthropic, and Claude specifically, is positioning itself. And if you notice, it wasn't as obvious, but they're looking at like the common worker, enterprise level, even like businesses here, because they're talking about solving problems when it comes to your business, and when it comes to coding, and when it comes to anything else that you might deal with in a daily workday. So that is like a unique positioning point, and they're obviously not number one right now. Everyone still knows that ChatGPT is. So they're trying to build trust. They're trying to like make their brand more recognized among the business class and the worker, so that they could think about them when it's time to like decide which of the handful of AI platforms to go with. So I don't know if you have anything to chime in on here, JC.
No, I think just like anything, the more competition that you're gonna have more brands trying to find their niche and trying to find like where do they fit into the market and how can they communicate to that specific demographic. And I think Claude did that here. OpenAI has always kind of been like that catch-all type platform where like you can kind of do everything, but they're
Yeah.
also kind of hitting that like family, family recipes and road trips and kind of like a more family-oriented take. So good for both of those. I think like for OpenAI, they're probably trying to get a little bit of emotion into it, because OpenAI from the beginning has just been very robotic and has been very, it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
it's an AI. So they're trying to add some personality to it. So brands are going to struggle here, or not struggle, but they're going to try really hard to add personality um, to these apps and to these platforms. The only one that I really didn't get or like, at least, was the friend one. I
Yeah.
didn't get like attaching AI to be your friend like that. There's a little something like eerie there and creepy that I think is just by default as a human is kind of I push that away. I don't
Yeah.
want an AI to be my friend or anything like that. Like I look at it as a tool, like we always talk about, and I think that that's where it's gonna stay as a tool. Once you get into that weird like friend, or there's a whole market now opening up of dating and that weird market. So like
Yeah.
yeah, that's just eerie to me, and I don't play that. And you saw it, like there was a bunch of people like tagging up the signs, and they were kind of like writing a bunch of negative stuff on it. So yeah, good for Claude, good for OpenAI. I love ChatGPT. That's kind of primarily what I use in a lot of my things. I like Gronk as well, Grok. But yeah, home runs on those, and then Friend. I just yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't.
No,
It
we'll
didn't
talk
hit. It didn't
about,
hit for me.
yeah, that one. Like, so this one, I don't think we even need the audio for, but you can kind of get an idea of like what is going on here. So you'll see that it's just like these two are on a date, right? And the prompt will come up now where it's like, I need a recipe that says I like you but want to play it cool, right? And then here's a
That's
prompt,
funny.
and it's kind of like showing it. It's very cinematic, it's zooming out, but trying to like dive into, like you said, very human centric, trying to make it like a day in the life of
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
And just like wrap it up with the ChatGPT and the OpenAI logo. And same thing with this one here, where it's a guy trying to do a pull up outside of his house, um, and the prompt comes up. I want to feel stronger. Help me do some pull ups by Autumn.
That's
So,
ChatGPT as well.
and this is ChatGPT,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
of these. So, but it's
Those are
cool.
good,
So, like,
man. Yeah.
it's a good way to extract also the white background and the black background that we're used to seeing, and kind of like putting it over actual like relatable situations
Yeah.
that are like posed in a cinematic way. But even some of these stills that you can see here, and I like the idea that they spread this out so that there's room to like put the subjects in the middle. So they
Yeah.
did a good job of like framing it and trying to make things feel more real, more like relatable. And
Yeah.
I think that they did a pretty good job of that. And they're positioning as like a co-creator, right? Like this is someone that's going to help you make your recipes, come up with a regimen, solve problems. Like if you don't know how to fix this thing in your engine. So there's a lot of things that I think that they're doing well, but they are up against that thing of just the broader appeal or lack of appeal of AI. And
Yeah.
is it just taking over the world and taking your jobs and all this, or is it more of like you're someone that you can co-create with, someone that can help you and is more an extension of you as opposed to this overlord?
Yeah. No, and again, I think that's well done by ChatGPT because they're framing it that way as just
Yeah.
a tool that you're going to use to improve your quality of life. And I think that's a great strategy because that's really what it is, and that's how we use it. But then again, this coming to the friend thing just
Yeah.
creeps me out,
So
man.
the interesting thing about Friend is like they didn't even have. They know that they're brushing up against a lot because it's a hardware device. It's not just
Uh,
an app you download. So it's a device. It's a listening device. So it's even more of like
Jeez.
this weird, moment of like, well, can I speak freely? What is it recording? Does this get sent to anyone and everyone? What's my
Yeah.
privacy? All these things. So excuse me. So they want to position like your friend, but what's interesting is that they knew that they would get backlash as a result. So they plastered these all over the subway,
Yeah.
and they expected people to do what they did. Excuse me. So they actually came in, and you see people here tagging it up. So they knew that they were going to get this kind of like response, and they knew this was going to lead to headlines and coverage. So it was a play on purpose to sort of like get people to do this. So I don't know if you have any
No,
thoughts
no,
on
no.
this.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess when you're not the leader in the pack, and when you have to do something to stand out, that's definitely the route to do it. And obviously, like the subways and stuff like that is the route to do it. But either way, like the product itself, to me, has a big hole and that they're trying to fill, and it really is like that creepiness that people naturally have, that humans naturally have to AI and to anything artificial like that. So just the name itself, like friend, like I don't know, it's just weird to me. So I really can't grasp my hands around it. It's eerie to me. So yeah, that's where I'm
Yeah,
at on it.
there were people that were comparing this to the movie Her. So like the
Mm,
whole like this is someone like, oh, this is your friend is replacing people, like, oh,
uh-huh.
you're dating your device.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I don't know. This is like, if you want to take a lesson away from this, it's like positioning is very important in this like emerging phase of technology when it comes to AI. And clearly, Friend wanted to take a risk here. Like they're just like they did this and they left white space on purpose,
on
knowing that
purpose.
people would tag it up. It was like inviting like that someone to deface it. So
Yeah,
it's a interesting attempt. I don't know if it'll work, especially just because you have to first get people to do something that they're not used to, which is buying a device to listen when for the most part you got your phones, you have other things to do that. So it's like it's brushing up already against the negative side of AI, and it's now trying to create a behavior that's uncommon. It's not like normal. You're talking about like tech adoption, like very early tech adopters. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's gonna work, but they're definitely at least show. It's a good thing to study as like a lesson. Like, all right, embrace risk. If you're really gonna try and punch up, go all out. They spent like $1 million on this
Jeez.
sub campaign. You know, so
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Again, they're trying to compete with the big boys in the market right now, and they've got to do everything that they can. So, and they did. Kudos to them. They took a risk.
yeah, I mean that's the one thing you have to at least give them credit for is that they did something that they knew that they couldn't just buy TV spots or YouTube or all this stuff and get as much reach and contend with other
Yeah.
AI tech softwares and hardwares. So I appreciate them honing in and targeting it this way. I just don't know if it works out.
Yeah, agreed.
So next up on the docket here is like Reebok, and they came out with two cool collabs, and they're really leaning into like the nostalgia here. One is with Kodak, and the other one is with PlayStation, and they did a really cool kind of like photo shoot. It's not just shoes, but it's apparel, so you can take a glimpse of it here.
Volume's still off, by the way.
Yeah. The good thing is that with this one, it was a lot of like camera snapping, so it's not, you know, it's kind of like to a beat, but as you could tell, like they're definitely leaning into this like late 80s, early 90s nostalgia movement when it comes to apparel, when it comes to just aesthetics in general. So I really do like what they're doing with this approach. Reebok as a business, you know, they used to be one of the top contenders many years ago, decades ago, really. But when they were, you know, kind of shut down essentially, and then now re-brought up and bought out in, I think it was like 2021 or 2022. It was like Authentic Brands bought them out.
Yeah.
They're leaning into the thing that they do have, which is brand equity in the nostalgia side of it. Like people still think of like, oh, it's old school, but old school is kind of cool right now when you're saying these specific eras. So I think it's a smart move while they figure out their next move. It's like also just it's new clothing, it's new shoes. It's not like they're just bringing old stuff back. So there's still new materials and new kind of like methods that are being integrated into the actual apparel and sneakers. But it's the aesthetic and the style and the look is very much leaning old school. So I think it's a good study into like how you can leverage nostalgia and use heritage really as an asset for them. And Gen Z really like is romanticizing this whole analog tech and film and vinyl 90s aesthetic stuff. So I think that it's a win-win for them here. I don't know if you have anything to say before we jump to the PlayStation stuff.
No, that I think like kudos to Reebok. It's not always about the trend. We talk about this all the time, right? It's not always about jumping on the trend. It's not always about chasing relevance. It's about being authentic. It's about being on brand. And I think like there's Reebok has such a heavy brand. It has such a powerful brand, and it has for
Yeah.
a long time. That even when they're down, they're not down. And this is a great example. This is an amazing kind of pivot into that nostalgic feel, kind of tapping into the 90s and 2000s, and I love it. And then also pairing with a brand that's in the same trajectory, probably in the same kind of category of like what they are, which is a 90s brand that is trying to find relevance in a new digital age. And I think good for them for pairing up on this. I love the ads. The ads are super cool. They're again very 90s, very on brand. And yeah, this is a really good example again of like, just because you are a brand, just because you are trying to build your community, it doesn't mean that you need to jump on every single trend that's out there. It doesn't mean that needs to be your entire marketing play. Like, you can tap into nostalgia, you can tap into things that are authentic and organic, and at the end of the day, that's going to be even more powerful to the consumer. And I think they'll probably have a lot of success in this. I don't know if they just rolled this out. I wasn't able to dive in too much, but just off the kind of like the pictures and the videos and the ads that they put out, like they're great. I love them, and I think they'll probably have a lot of success on this.
Yeah, like both of these drops are very new. Like I think the Kodak one was in September, and this one for PlayStation is this month. So it's I think it's great. Also a limited run for the PlayStation one. I believe that there's only like I don't know, 750 or like 1,000 pairs of these. It's like a very limited release from my understanding. So I do like also like leaning into collab culture and not just like leaning into what IP you own, but also saying like, hey, look, we're both of this era, or we're both in this kind of category where we have an overlap of people that like our stuff. Like, let's do something together. So yeah, look here. This one says collector's
That's
edition,
cool.
1 of 750. So you can tell that they're leaning into like a premium aspect of it, or like a collector's model here. I do like that they have 3 different kind of models for the shoes that all obviously have the signature gray and the little tag and things like that. But yeah, there's a nice
That's
touch. Even
dope.
this little lace thing is like
Yeah.
the where you connect the controllers or connect the little memory card. So it's really well done. The details here, you can see the X's and O's and square, like the keypad details on the pattern back here. Even just a variation of the grays. I love when you find ways to merge it all together. It's definitely well done, in my opinion, from a design standpoint. So you could tell, you know, they did it justice. Even here on the, you can see these
Damn, that's
little.
dope. Yeah, it's nice.
So this replaced the X, so that was kind of
Yeah.
cool. So they have like that. That's a nice little touch. So yeah, this is kind of at a glance what it's like. I wanted to also touch just at the macro level. Like you could tell here, this was from Retail Dive back in 2022, and it was really talking about authentic brands coming in. So they mentioned here at this point, like in 2020, they had just made 1.6 billion, which was 35 billion less than Nike.
Jesus.
So that's, you could tell that, Nike and Adidas are at the very top, and Reebok isn't even in the top 5 globally right now.
Yeah.
But when authentic brands came in and they bought the company, they wanted to kind of rehash it and regain some of that market share and tap into the long lasting heritage and brand legacy that has been built. It's just really, like it says here, they were not in growth mode for a long time. So
No, they weren't.
moving from slow growth to fast growth is a tough thing. So it's a lot. Adidas really like ran it to the ground. They kind of like bought it to shut it down, I think, less than like trying to maintain it. So
Yeah.
now that it's back on the market, they kind of did what they had to do in a sense. Like it's kind of predatory and messed up because it's like they got it, they shut it down, they took all their market share from it, and they didn't have that competitor to deal with. But now it's back from the dead, and
all these big boys do that.
Yeah,
all these big boys do that. Unilever is always doing that with chip brands and different things.
So is Diageo. There's plenty of other big holding companies that do that kind of stuff. But yeah, so there's that, and I do like also like to talk about this last part, which is cool. They leaned into on the basketball division, which they know they have a specific grasp on. Like you look at those shoes, you think about basketball, you think about casual wear, but really like Reebok has been synonymous with basketball mostly. And when you have Shaquille O'Neal and you have Allen Iverson as, stewards of that brand, especially with their own sneakers in the past, they gave them an opportunity. And they were both, at some points in their career, they were both people that were outsiders. Like they're like, oh, why does Allen Iverson dress this way? And Shaq, he's a big man. Big men can't sell anything. Like there's a lot of things. So there is that like underdog mentality, and that like one of the few brands that gave them an opportunity to really make a name for themselves and platform themselves with apparel and with their own line. So I do like this move, and I do think that it's going to be a cool thing to watch how they bridge that gap. They lean into some of the more nostalgic and retro stuff, but also innovate with new sneakers. Like there's a whole Netflix documentary that came out talking about this and releasing the new shoes. So that to me, I'm curious to follow this because Reebok is kind of in that mid teetering that line. They're like getting back into it with what you know, but then
Uh-huh.
they have to prove themselves with the new stuff. They can't just be stuck in the past. So
Agreed.
I give them kudos for leaning into what they already know is working and good. But I'm really curious to see how well those new shoes do, especially with the basketball line.
Yeah, I think especially now, getting into this modern digital age that we're in, and the line kind of disappearing, or that barometer disappearing of brands that can create content, that can spend money on X, Y, and Z. That stuff, like, everybody's becoming a brand that can do that, right? It's about the storytelling, and it's about the how can you find this niche, how can you find this personality that not other brands can't do. Man, it always does that. That other brands can't do. And I think, like, this is a great route to do that. They're like you said, they're leaning on their history, but also bringing in Shaq, bringing in AI, is even more diving into the culture part of it as well, like really diving into that, like, 90s culture, and at the end of the day, that's who sells your product. And I think it's it's a home run in my book. I agree. Let's kind of track it. Let's see how this works, because at the end of the day, they do have to sell they do have to sell modern stuff as well. They have to sell in today's age as well, so it's not just kind of a look in the past. So let's see. But I love this. I love when brands do this, especially brands like Reebok that can easily go. And they went into like heavy CrossFit in the 2000s, and that was like their thing. And it just wasn't on brand. It felt pushed. It felt weird.
Yeah.
But this feels organic and on brand. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Cool. And then the last topic here. So Pizza Hut rolled out a refresh logo, and this was done by a group called AA Designers. They kept the iconic red roof, which is probably like their strongest visual asset, but they polished up the typography a little bit, italicized the letters, and added some movement, in the Z and the H and the U. So like there's some interesting elements that they added here, and it's really like they started rolling this out mainly in international markets like the UK and Canada, but they've been also rolling this out on their US market. Like you could tell here in this video that I'm going to show that they're kind of starting to roll this out across the board, and it's an interesting way. They're kind of like trying to toe the line here of how do you not step away too much, because they've done this not that long ago and it didn't go well and they reverted back. So it's like it's almost like just tuning up what already was there. And I think they were just trying to lean into the whole side of the digital first approach and making sure that these things read well when you see them on videos and when you see them in different digital displays. So in apps and social feeds, all that kind of stuff. So I see the reason behind it. It doesn't seem like it's a complete departure, but yeah, I wanted to know your thoughts on this and what you think about it.
Unless they bring back their old restaurants, I don't care. No, I love their logo. It's iconic. I don't know how long ago they kind of came back to this old school, Pizza Hut with the roof. I think they've gone through like 15 different iterations since the beginning of their company. It's iconic. I don't love like the single color logo for this specifically, but I could see why they did it. Like you said, it's a play on like digital first and how it's going to present itself on digital platforms. So I get that part. But whatever. I don't know if they needed it. I'm not in their business. I don't know if they needed a brand refresh or a brand logo refresh. It's okay. It's fine. It keeps the old nostalgic kind of pieces to it. So it is Pizza Hut. It feels Pizza Hut. Kind of opposite of what like Crackle Barrel did, where they kind of went complete opposite of what they were and what the kind of brand was. This feels pretty on brand. It's more tweaked than anything else. So I'm good with it. I think brands, for the most part, especially brands like this, should every at least like 10 years give it a refresh, give it a little bit of a touch. And I think that's that. So yeah, that's my take. It's good.
Yeah. And you can see here, you don't even have to like hear the audio here, but you'll see in the intro how they introduce it. So they kind of like it, they show it and then it kind of zooms in to it. And it's kind of like done in a way to show how they can leverage it, right? And I totally see the single color move as something that is needed for digital first, because there's times where, especially on a video, like even in this video you're watching right now, we have our logo that's at the top right that is just in white. But if it was two different colors, it might clash with the background, or it might clash with something, or you might have to add an outline or something so you make it legible and stand out regardless of the background. So to kind of mitigate that, I think it makes sense for them to do this. And I did think that they did a decent job of, towing that line of like retaining the heritage and the retro side without departing too far from it, and still like cleaning it up, making it a little bit more modern in a sense. And really at the end of the day, they're still up against the main competitors in this space, the giants of Domino's, Papa John's, Little Caesars. They're all battling on the same thing, which is price and promotions and speed of delivery. So, we're talking about this as, brand specialists and designers and marketers. But at the end of the day, like you said, as long as they don't bring back the old locations, I don't care. The truth is that forget the locations, because in reality, like people aren't going in like they used to, but change something. I think that Domino's is at least for pizza companies of this scale, they're the ones that did it right, because they actually took feedback, changed wholesale things like their recipe, the way that they made stuff. They made the freaking the little meter that shows you when it's being made. Like
Even their name, they took off pizza from the name. It's just
correct.
Domino's now.
Yeah,
because they added different items.
With Dunkin' in a sense, right? Like, because they wanted to also expand outside of pizza. Pizza, it's kind of screwed in that sense. You can't just say Hut. It says no one out pizza's the Hut is their tagline, but you can't just say the Hut, because it just then would sound weird. So they're kind of pigeonholed into like that. I know that they also rolled out as part of this campaign is like these flat pizzas, almost like it looks a little Detroit style. I think they show it here at the end.
Yeah, they're like flatbreads.
Yeah, it's like flatbreads.
I wonder, now that we're seeing how the market is playing out, and you're seeing like these you're seeing these middle I don't know what the category is, but it's like the Chili's, the Fridays. Well, Fridays is a bad example, but Chili's, which is having a great resurgence. And actually the downfall of like the fast casual, not downfall, but like, Chipotle is getting hit a little bit. We were talking about Starbucks the other day, which is coffee, but still kind of like that fast casual. I wonder if Pizza Hut, if they would benefit from kind of bringing back like that old school style, like pizzeria, Pizza Hut type deal, like that mom and pop feel, because I feel like that would differentiate them. Because Domino's, like to your point, Domino's leaned into this is fast. You're going to be able to not only get pizza, but we got boneless chicken wings. We got these other items. It's fast. It is cheap. And, like just like Little Caesars, the same thing. And I almost feel like Pizza Hut, that would be a play there, is like, strategically kind of like, play on that and bring back that old nostalgic, pizzeria. I don't even know what they call it, but the Huts, basically the Pizza Huts, which was what they were. So I don't know. That would be an interesting kind of case study.
Yeah, so it's these crafted flats is what you call them, and they're that rectangular shape, almost like Detroit style, but a little bit less bread, I guess. But
yeah, I get it. Feel good times, like a little old school,
Yeah, they're trying to do that. It doesn't, but again, it just doesn't feel that innovative. Like I get you're trying to lean into the old stuff, and it's you can't depart from that. But to your point, I think like if they really were serious about this and they wanted to do something that's not necessarily scalable, but can really inject them into relevance, I think that they would have to take an approach of merging the two experiences, which is when you think about going to those old locations, which again, I don't even know if they could remake that experience the way that some of those are inside now, especially a lot of them are just takeout. But the
Yeah.
few that there are, they could do pop-up events. They could do kind of like very specialty events where you actually are able to go in and enjoy a birthday party or a rave or some other kind of thing that, you know, really like can make an experience that's memorable, that people want to capture, that people
Yeah.
want to actually, you know, put together a group of people to let's all go and enjoy this together. So that to me is what's missing, and something that they're kind of just ignoring or brushing under the rug, right? Like that's ultimately what made them them. And so yeah, it's very interesting, and there is initial reactions here on mostly from designers. This was from Ad Age, so like this is just the comments below here. But you had someone here that worked at the in-house office, and they were like, they were in the social content creator. They were the only one for years, and they said the they just rebrand way too often. Like, why again? They
Fair
paid
enough.
so much money to
Yeah.
Deutsche LA for their last one, but like another one just 7 years later. Like, come on. And I kind of have to agree with that. That maybe they should have just let this ride a little longer, and maybe in 3 years do something different or whatnot. But I think the truth is that they're kind of trying to run away. Like, it's not paired with anything tangible,
Right. Right.
right? Like, you did this, but is there outside of these flats, which who knows? Let's see in 3 months, in 6 months, if those flats are still available. They always roll these things out, and then if it sucks, they just take it off the menu.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like the interesting part of it. And it's mixed, right? Some people are like, oh, I like it. It took me back to the golden times when Pizza Hut was fire. Someone
Eh,
the logo is fine. They need to revamp their operations. They're not going to compete on the delivery side. They need to heavily invest in making their dining experience top notch again. That's what we're talking about
correct.
here.
It's exactly
I
what we're
think that
talking about.
they don't want to accept that unless it's in the wings waiting to roll it out, which would be awesome. But that's ultimately what needs to happen. Like, they need to make it so that Gen Z
Yeah.
and families and these different audiences that they now have to pay attention to, young families, um, are willing to go in and do that.
Yeah.
Because, and to me, yeah, I've lost kind of like love for the brand because I also just didn't like the taste of it. I know everyone has different preferences.
I'm not a huge fan. Mari is, but I'm not a huge fan. Yeah.
Correct. And obviously on the price point, like it's competitive. Like, you're gonna
Sure.
get deals and whatnot. You have a big party, but it's just too much. You have too many smaller brands that are chipping away. You have Domino's that's really like made a resurgence for itself over the last 10, 20 years. Um, I just think that this is Pizza Hut trying to like put a stake in the ground, like, hey, we're still relevant. Like, don't forget
Yeah.
about us, but like do something else. Like, you coming out with these flatbreads and Anderson Paak as the face of it isn't going to be enough outside of like, hey, we're talking about it right now, but in 2 weeks, in 6 months, if we're not talking about you again, like it's failed.
Yeah, you're going to continue to do the same thing. You're going to continue to do these rebrands or these tweaks to try to make a little bit of noise. You're going to come out with a very half-ass commercial or campaign like they did, and okay, great. I mean, nothing about flatbread takes me back to the 80s and 90s, like at all,
Yeah.
or whatever time period they were trying to hit there. But yeah, I agree. Like, if you're going to lean into it, lean into it. I think there's a huge opening right now in the market for that. I don't want to say third space because that's a little bit different, but like what we had growing up, like after a game, you'd go to Pizza Hut, or we would go, locally, we'd go to Sports Grill or whatever the case may be. But I remember going to Pizza Hut a ton of times, and you'd spend an hour and a half there, 2 hours, just eating pizza, playing with your friends, like, and it was that kind of experience. So I think, yeah, these brands, like, they need to, if they're really going to do it, lean into it and do something like that, like Reebok. Reebok actually coming out with products that are nostalgic and pairing up with Kodak and stuff like that. So I think, like, Pizza Hut, it's just, it's just a brand tweak at the end of the day. There's nothing behind it. There's no real campaign. It's to keep the name relevant. I don't remember the last time that I had Pizza Hut. Again, we only have it here when Mari's having a craving for pizza because she grew up eating Pizza Hut. We didn't, so I don't really love it. And yeah, that's it. You're not offering me anything other than outside of what Domino's can offer me, outside of what Papa John's can offer me. And when I'm going to try to order that, like, quick, fast, not great pizza, but we'll do the trick type pizza. That's exactly what that category is.
Yeah.
And yeah, just okay, great. You kind of tweaked the logo. Good for you.
Yeah. I think
That's how
yeah,
I feel.
the dine-in experience, even though it's just like a dying thing at this point, it's like I think that the strategy here would be that they would work with certain local operators in key markets where there still is locations that have dine-in capacity, right? And do things that are relevant to that neighborhood, even like down to the neighborhood
Yes.
level. Like invite people who live there and tell them to bring in photos of when they had their birthday parties or post game meals at everyone has that somewhere. Like everyone that grew up in this era has some sort of photo that they could bring and cherish and be nostalgic about and kind of like share those stories. And there's a way to activate that and do it right. It just takes a lot of effort, and I don't know if they're willing to do that. But I feel like that's what it's going to take if they're serious about this, because again, they're just being eaten out of the middle. Like it's either you're just going to be delivery, nobody goes into your store, and you're competing for price and period, or the mom and pops are going to take that dine in. They're going to take that business. That people actually like and know the owner, know the people that work there, and it's like you just you can't have it both ways unless you commit to something that isn't necessarily scalable. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest part. When you got suits sitting in an office thinking about how to make their margins higher or how to make more revenue, it's not commonly talked about like, oh, well, let's bring back the dining experience and let's like invest all this money to activate these different markets. So that's where I stand with it. I think they're in a tough spot. They're gonna have to make some tough decisions to really like get out of this weird spot that they're in.
Yeah, and I think to kind of cap it off, I think a lot of these bigger brands and kind of brands that have been around for decades, this is the spot they find themselves in, right? Which is like they're a brand that's recognized, not necessarily a brand that's loved. And I think it's a big hurdle for whoever's running Pizza Hut right now, is because that's exactly the category that they're in. They're recognized, but they're not loved. Definitely not
Yeah.
anymore. They were growing up, but like they're just not that anymore. And I agree, like especially in smaller towns, maybe not big cities, but in smaller towns like those, like for instance, where I live, the mom and pops run everything here in Clearwater and in Dunedin. Like they run everything here. There's big chains, but most people are going to the local pizza shop, the mom and pop pizza shop, because you want that experience. You want that hour, 2 hours that you're with your family, and they have the arcade, and you get to experience that. It's almost like that throwback. And I think that's unfortunately for all these brands that we've talked about, Reebok being one of them as well, is like you gotta fight that every single day to be a brand that's loved, not a brand that's recognized only. And that's a tough challenge.
Yeah. And what's funny is like I don't know if this was like inadvertent or just like the stars aligning, but it feels like today's entire rundown was very much like a 90s throwback, because we're
It
talking about
was.
soda, we're talking about Reebok and sneakers, we're talking about pizza, and the only thing that's new is AI. And even then, the way that those AI commercials and campaigns outside of what Friend did position themselves is humanizing and having an ode to retro and nostalgic kind of looks. Like the people in those commercials are wearing like nostalgic looking fits or things that you feel like could have been in the 90s, or even the music and the motifs that were used in those commercials definitely have that vibe going for them. So you could tell that the 90s, and I think that the other thing you're seeing too, like this Y2K thing is like the next one that you're starting to see. You see like a lot of these Gen Z kids wearing clothing that was popular in the early 2000s. So if you're watching a trend and you're watching to see where things are going, it's like they're leaning into that late 90s, early 2000s vibe heavily right now. And I don't know what that means for brands. Like you can come up with campaigns. I don't think that you should redo your logo and have this funky like Y2K looking thing. I'm super against that, because that's like trend chasing so hard that you're gonna then end up like Pizza Hut doing a rebrand in 5 years or less, because you went too hard. You turned the steering wheel too hard.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at history, this history repeats itself, right? Like in the 50s and 60s, you had this like huge push for progress and for futuristic things, and what is the world going to look like in 2025 and 2050, and you had these takes on that, right? And then you hit the opposite when you got into the kind of the 60s and 70s. It was very, be grounded and psychedelic and just like, love life type deal. And then we jumped into the 90s, and you kind of got into the same thing. It was like this futuristic look ahead, whatever. And but now I think we're back at that. Is like there's so much progress right now. There's so much movement. Just look at since Cultura has been open, like the amount of technology since we've been open and doing business together, like how far along we've come. Like you go back into our WhatsApp, you go back 8 months ago, the stuff that we were doing with AI or playing around with, like it is light years ahead now. It's only 6 to 8 months. So I think what ends up happening as a society, as a culture, you're just like, yo, slow down a bit. Like I want to enjoy, I want to be grounded. I want to like, let me enjoy the technology. Let me enjoy the things that I have around me. Don't put me over here. Every 2 days you're throwing me 20 years in advance. Like slow down. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you're seeing right now in society, is almost like relax. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of progress. We love progress, but just stay grounded, enjoy, live in the moment. And I think that's what you're seeing with these kind of throwback to the 80s and 90s. And again, it's just, it comes back around. It's kind of a pendulum in that way. It's going to come back around, and then we'll get back into the, futuristic looking, and we'll kind of do this whole song and dance. But yeah, I think overall, we are in that moment right now. And ironically, yes, this was like a 90s throwback. But yeah, I like it. I love the 90s look. I love the 80s, 90s vibe. I think as millennials, we also kind of have always clinged on to that era. We were very good about, bringing that era with us. And then I think you see it now with Gen Z, kind of that throwback. They want that. They're looking for that. I was looking up some stats today, or I think you had put it on the stats, but film cameras are up 25% in sales since 2024. Vinyl record sales hit 46 million units in 2023. So all these old school kind of apparatuses and ways of listening or taking pictures or whatever the case may be, this old type of technology is coming back, and it's being repurposed and utilized. And we talked about the resurgence of the third space. I think that all plays into that like kind of slowdown of society that people are yearning for, so.
Yeah, no, and I think that I agree 100% on the fact that we've been fed so much of this new technology and the overly like tech forward modernism that permeated probably like the 2010s. We're starting to see like the shift happen again, where it's like, hey, that's a little bit, it feels a little soulless, or it feels like character and heritage have been stripped out of so much of things that are being presented to us with the startups and the technology that was, of that era. And now you're starting to see more character and meaning and those kinds of things being injected into brands, because that's what people are resonating with. Because otherwise, like you're saying, there's no way that we can even begin to not just grasp and digest, but actually apply and use these things on a daily basis. Like while a lot more people are starting to use things like ChatGPT, they're not, it's still not adopted at a rate where you think like, oh, this has completely replaced traditional search and traditional tech adoption. So there's still a lot for people to digest and learn from. And I think that there's just like this moment where things are going to slow down a little bit in terms of new releases. And it's more about iterating and learning how to use what's out there right now. Because it's just not, it's just not, we cannot adapt to it fast enough.
At the end of the day, as much as we want to have progress and as much as we want to be ahead of the curve and on top of technology, like everybody's different. And there are certain people, and for a lot of things, I'm like this too, is I don't necessarily want the most optimized or latest gadget or whatever the case may be. In a lot of cases I do, but sometimes I just want to connect to the product or the service or whatever the case may be. Sometimes I want that storytelling. Sometimes I want that nostalgia. Sometimes I just want to feel the product. You know what I mean? And it's not always what's the most optimized or efficient thing. And I think brands need to kind of take that out of their head. And to your point, a lot of them are where they're kind of leaning into this stuff. So yeah, I think that's on point. I don't know if you want to read some of the comments here.
Yeah, I
that
was
we've
just
gotten.
reading one that I completely missed here, and it was Derek mentioned that the Tank actually went through a rebrand. The Tank Brewing is a local brewery out here in Miami. It's kind of like nestled between Doral and Hialeah. And I'm looking at this for the first time, so I'm gonna see if we could screen share here and do like a little live. Um,
Can you pop up that comment, Derek's comment?
Yes. So Derek wrote it a while back, but so this
There it
looks
is.
like, yeah, the Tank. This is a complete departure from what they had. Like I wonder if they still have old stuff that you can kind of tell. Yeah, like here, this still had some of the older branding with like the typography. Let me see, like this was the old logo, very like
Yeah.
simplistic and almost industrial kind of looking with a lot of spacing in between. And then obviously they use the cans to do homage to certain things in Miami with different illustrative vector based kind of looking approach. But yeah, like up here, let's just do a first reaction of this stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so
definitely looks like a departure from what they were or what they were trying to come across as, for sure.
they're definitely, so they have like this halftone kind of approach here, with little things like this is I think in Alligator Alley is like a little nod to Florida. I like the subtle, little references here. See what this video looks like. Some clean little like B-roll
It's a good video.
hinting at this. Oh, cool. So they have like a full-on video that they released. I wonder if this was done in the cigar room that they have in there. Yeah, so this feels like almost like I'm looking at the logo and I kind of feel like it has an homage to like an old auto body shop or something, like old cars, right? Like vintage cars. And so that's an interesting kind of take. Um I think it works well with the brand. Like it's still thick and bold and easy to read. I'm glad that they didn't go the other route.
Yeah.
Um, and
They're
yeah,
also
like
bringing in, it looks like they're bringing in some of that like natural Florida landscape with the
yes,
trees, the Everglades, and the greenery. Very similarly to our play with Session Coffee.
Mhm.
So I kind of like that angle as well. And giving it like, I don't know if this is the route they're going, but it seems giving it a little bit of that old Florida feel. Very like Everglades, very natural kind of take on it. So I would love to see where obviously they're just getting the rollout going. So I'd love to see like where the rest of it is going. But yeah, so far I'm kind of digging it. And again, they're still kind of tapping into the Miami, but they're tapping into that it looks like very old Florida
yeah, I
feel.
would say that what the first post was 2 days ago. So this is like super
Yeah, it's
fresh.
very new. Yeah.
So like, and then the first actual tease of the logo was a day ago. So this
Yeah.
is 1,000% just happening. Curious to know who the team behind this was, if it was internal or another agency. But it seems like they're doing a good job. It's leaning into cultural iconic spaces in Miami and South Florida. The typography is definitely leaning into a little bit of retro, but a little bit modern. Like I've been seeing a lot more of this like very compressed and tall typeface that's being used a lot. It allows you to fit text, and you really, if you think about it, we're looking at a screen that is made for, like, really, and the Instagram app is made for mobile. It's made for a vertical
Correct.
screen, and
Correct.
this kind of typography maximizes real estate on more vertical compressed spaces. So you're seeing this a lot more. I think Spotify leaned into this a couple of years ago when they did their Spotify wrap up or whatever. So you're starting to see this kind of thing lean in. So I like the fresh approach here, while the logo has more of an homage to something vintage.
Yeah.
So yeah, first response. I think it looks good so far. I'm curious to see what the rest of the rollout's going to be like. And they still kept, I think they still kept certain brand elements. Like I think this is still here, the T
Uh-huh.
with the,
Uh-huh.
so I don't think that they're completely departing from every single aspect of it, but clearly like it's a big rebrand, a big refresh here.
Yeah.
And good to see that from a local industry, especially in a category that's been suffering
Big
like
time.
craft brewing.
Yeah.
I think it's good to like plant a new stake in the ground. A lot of craft breweries down here in South Florida have converted to full liquor as well. I don't know if that's what they're going to be doing or if they're just going to stick to beer. I think it seems like they're just doubling down on the beer side. Um, so yeah, it's cool to kind of like read this from a local perspective and from a category perspective.
Yeah. I think we in the agency we have B Culture as one of our clients, and they kind of went down this route about a year ago, not necessarily in the rebranding, but really in just like the reimagination of who they are, because like you said, breweries in Miami are struggling. I think if you just do the math, with real estate and costs in Miami to run a business, beers don't provide the amount of margin needed to be able to stay open. So I think a lot of these breweries are turning into more of like bars and lounges and whatnot. I don't like to see that, and it's unfortunate because I do like that traditional brewery that we not grew up with, but like that we had that wave of 10 years ago, like the craft brewery wave,
Yeah.
before they all started selling to the big dogs. I liked that. I really enjoyed, and I'm not even a craft beer drinker, but I really liked that experience. I love Tank. I've been there a lot of times, but yeah, this is, to your point, just kind of showing you where the market is going, especially in Miami with these local breweries, and they have to reimagine themselves. They have to kind of showcase and take advantage of other parts of their business. So, and assume they're going to do that. They have a beautiful brewery or a beautiful location. I love their spot. It's comfy. I watched a bunch of games there. I watched some games there with Derek. So I love Tank. They have the cigar shop there as well, that
Yeah,
you can get a
love that.
cigar and smoke, which is awesome. So yeah, I wish them the best of best of luck. I love so far the rollout that they've had on Instagram, and yeah, man, good luck to them. I know it's tough right now to be a brewer or a brewery in Miami, and I hope they maximize every portion of that location that they can. They have really cool event spots there too. I did a bachelor party kind of like tasting there. They take you to the back. They have specialty beers that
Yeah.
they've brewed or whatever, and with different caskets, different things that are really cool. So I wish them the best of luck. They have all the makings to continue to push forward. So, but yeah, I like the branding. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to wrap it up here, I too have frequented the Tank at different phases. I just recently did kind of like my version of a baby shower or a poppy shower
Poppy
there.
shower.
Yeah, while my wife was doing the baby shower, I went. My best friend was actually his wife was pregnant a month apart, so we both celebrated together, and we went out there, and it's great. There's plenty of space. It's easy to do that, and as well as like a cousin's birthday, we went there recently, and it's just very easy to step in with larger groups and enjoy that. I think that the one thing that they're doing by planting the stake in the ground and doubling down as a brewery while all the other ones are starting to like phase out or close down is that they're looking at the other end of the cycle, which I think is like, while
Smart.
it is a trend to close down some of these places because they didn't economically, it didn't work out. There, I think that when you go back to the roots, like breweries aren't going anywhere. Like the actual core institution of a brewery, like
Been around
you've
forever.
had the Abbey in Miami Beach for years, these watering holes where you can get it. It's just really about making it work for you economically. But I think it's just going to be a lot less of like the fancy overloaded menu of like a trillion different options. You're just going to condense it down to a few that make sense and that you can actually order, and people that are not craft beer heads can step in and feel like it's inviting and they don't feel like it's over their head. So I think that that's, if they do that, they'll continue to succeed down here. And I think that they're doing a good job in this early rollout. But
Yeah, I agree with you. I think doubling down on that, if you can do it, and if you're able to maximize other parts of the space, which they have in the past, I think doubling down on the brewery portion of it is probably a smart move for them, for them, since everybody's kind of pivoted on that. So yeah, I agree with you. And breweries have been around forever. They're going to be around forever. I do think they kind of, to your point, they kind of got a little bit snobby. A couple years there, they were pushing that kind of like, super craft beers. I think if they kind of simplify it, get to the meat and potatoes of what a brewery is, I think breweries will have some good success here as others pivot. So I agree.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, that wraps up our rundown. We did talk about a lot, and we thank anyone that tuned in. You'll probably see a few of these clips coming up on your feed in the coming weeks. If you have any ideas or see any trends happening, any news in this industry, obviously we're going to come to the table with what we find, but we're always open to suggestions and comments and feedback, especially things like this. Like, we'd love to do more of these like live reviews on the stream, so that you can get our initial reaction, so you can tell us. There's no canned responses here. This is us like digesting it live. But other than that, encourage you to follow us on Instagram at Cultura Creative Co. And follow us on YouTube and subscribe to Cultura Talks, where we stream these every 2 weeks. Other than that, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you. Peace.